So I am going to ask you to take a deep breath with me. For some of you, how I'm going to start the service will be just fine. And then for other of you, it may feel a little uncomfortable. I have been in deep contemplation, and along the spiritual journey, in my spiritual direction, I am reading this book called The Mystic Heart, and it goes over the contemplative mystical practices across all different faith traditions, and one of them, obviously, is the mystical Christian faith tradition. And so I do have an affinity for the teachings of Jesus, not the myth that has been passed down from generation, from religious leaders. I have an affinity for the Dalai Lama and an affinity for Saint Teresa of Avila. And they brought the spirituality to everything in life. There was no separation. The business world, my spiritual world. The political world, my spiritual world. See, spirituality is supposed to inform everything we do, right? So, in this brief introduction, I'm asking you to stay with me. I love everyone. I may not see things the same way as you, but there is a space and an opening because I seek to see the divinity in all. So just take a deep breath with me. So after the 2024 election results were tabulated and Donald Trump was declared winner, countless people from this community, across the unity movement, across the nation, across the world, was filled with dismay. Some celebrated, but I want to talk to that dismayment, this disbelief, this shock, and where that may come from. Because the dismay is that how could someone who incited an insurrection, declared bankruptcy 6 times, was found liable in a court of law of sexual assault. Now I'm reading facts, not opinions. Was convicted of 34 felony accounts for business fraud, settled out of court 3 times for both housing and employment discrimination, defrauded hundreds of students who paid tuition to attend Trump University only to find out it was a sham university. And I myself has witnessed countless demeaning and violent statements made by Donald Trump about women, about immigrants, about people of brown and black skin, and those from the LGBTQ community. And so the dismay may be, how could someone with this criminal background and immoral behavior hold the office? Can be deemed possible. Now, I'm not interested in what team you're on. That is not what I'm about. Because you see, if you are a teacher, if you are a minister, if you are a policeman, if you are a firefighter, in most places of employment, someone would not be hired with that background. I know myself, right? I know myself, in order to become a minister, they asked for my bank records. I had to undergo a psychological exam and an interview and pass all kinds of tests. And I know that goes on in many fields. So I'm not here because I want to crucify anyone who voted for him or to pass judgment. It is just to look and see, how do we apply our spiritual teachings and principles to go through and look at this moment that we are all in, right? So, and after the election, many of us, the pundits, have been looking and taking a moral inventory to see why this has occurred. And there's speculations. It's because people are this, or people are that, or people are, so on, right? And the bottom line is, I cannot know why anyone chose what they did. And for me to project that is not fair, right? It is not. But what I do know I can do is to first go within and to do some discerning as to what is alive in me and what is mine to do or not to do. To do some discerning in how do I move through whatever it is that I'm feeling. Not just in this situation, but in any aspect of my life. And so I speak of discernment. And our discernment is our power of wisdom. And so I just want to take a look at this before we go into step 4 in our series of Breathing on the Water, where we look at the 12 steps of the 12-step program. And so our power of wisdom is our power of discernment, evaluation, and our ability to apply what we know. And when we are centered in ego consciousness, or our false self, our personality self, so on and so on, we can come from a place of what is called, Reverend Paul Hasselbeck coined the words of come from an undeveloped state of wisdom or an egocentric state. And I just put them all together. So when we are coming from our false self, our shadow self, which we'll talk about, it is where we hide ourselves a head in the sand. We shouldn't be talking or looking at this because it's not spiritual, and so it's easy to do a spiritual bypass, right? Or anything in our lives. Let's not go there. Let's not look at it. Let's just say a whole bunch of affirmations and all will be well. That is part of it. But we need to go within and look and see and do some discerning. And then in the underdeveloped state, we are unable to discern in the direction of our healing and our growth. Now, in the direction of our healing and growth sometimes looks messy. We get that intuitive hit and we're like, what? I'm guided to do what? But we know. How do we know when we're being directed and doing discerning from within? Put it in the chat, or if you could share here. How do you have that intuitive hit that it is coming from your spiritual consciousness, your intuition? Deb.
In my gut.
Mm-hmm. So good. So now I want to, would it be okay if I go further with this? Do you ever feel fear in your gut?
Absolutely.
So how do you know that what you're feeling in your gut is divine wisdom and not coming from fear?
Because when I take a look at the fear, I'm feeling it first in my gut and then all throughout my body, and I am worried. When I look at the question, whatever it is, and I go to discern, is this truth? Is this my truth? Or is this false sense? I will go into my gut and I will experience a relaxation of my gut and a warmth that flows throughout my body.
Beautiful. Thank you. And for everybody, they have to understand that for themselves, right? Beautiful. Someone who really takes, that deep dive in that knowing. See, intuition hits us. Sometimes there's a thought, a knowing, that gut feeling. Sometimes when I would be house hunting and I would walk into a place and it would be like, oh, I don't know, this doesn't feel right. And then I would be like, do that discerning. Is it coming from fear? Where is that coming from? And then that knowing, that warmth. And sometimes it would just be like, oh, this is it. But for others, it may be something in their heart center. So we all have to know, right, how we're doing that discerning. Is there anything in the chat? 2, so go ahead. Yes, could you hand Matt the mic? Thank you.
Okay, Carol Penn says, my body feels open to the message no matter what it is. It does not feel like a threat even if it is not good news. And the second one is from Zoom user. It's not loud. It's a soft voice of gentleness. It doesn't shout, judge, or criticize. It comes from love.
That is really awesome. I'm not sure if that's Marion or somebody else, but the Zoom user, but thank you, brilliant. Anybody else? Lawrence.
Yeah, when I'm confronted with a situation, what I try to do is be very consciously aware of my head brain, my heart brain, and my gut. Simultaneously, all 3 of those have to be firing quite a bit in almost like a perfect balance. And then my intuition's kicked in. It's not just, the heart's can be a little out of balance. The gut could also be, and the head can, you know what the head does. We all know what that
It does do some good things.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Woo.
Thanks. And you know what? You speak into something, because into the mystical teachings and Jesus' teachings was that in other mystical traditions, not just that, but was that in order to be awake, we need to have open our bodies, our minds, and our hearts. So you speak to something that is a spiritual truth. So thank you. So just want to share this last point, and this is from Power Up, a book written on the 12 spiritual powers by Paul Hasselbeck. And he says that when we are in our egocentric aspect of using our wisdom, it is highly judgmental. Anybody ever engage in judgment here? Inappropriately discriminatory, as in, these are direct words, this was written a long time ago, as in being racist and or sexist, and shrewd in dealing with people and situations. It's also to be highly critical of others and using wisdom inefficiently as a tool to coerce others. Sound familiar? Yeah, okay. Now moving into our divine nature, we do wine, yes, we need lots of wine. Jesus drank it. I'm sorry. Or grape juice, okay, I'm just, we are doing the 12 steps here. Our divine nature. And we're called in, like how you all have been sharing, how you do that. Wise discernment and discrimination and evaluation. It's the ability to apply and live from spiritual truth, right? To apply what we know at the highest, most efficient level, and to live from the highest place to be the expression of light that we are. It also calls us to do discerning of not how it will impact me, but other people, right? It comes from that place. And so, what I want to say here is this. I want to repeat. We can never do discerning as to the motives of others. It's hard enough to do a moral inventory of ourselves, right? Let alone doing a moral inventory of others. Now, it's not to say that when we are a we, whether it's a nation or a community, that you don't come together to look, see, and tell the truth. But that doesn't involve me just saying something about the whole, right? It's about asking. It's about inquiry. It's about being curious. It's about wanting to know. And it does mean that we look at our shadow, which we're going to talk about, either personally or collectively. But we can't do that collective piece if we're not willing to take a fearless and moral inventory of ourselves, which is what Jesus spoke of in Matthew chapter 7, verses 3-4. Why do you look at the speck that is in your brother's eye, your sister's eye, their eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, and behold, the log is in your own eye, right? And so that speaks into that truth. It speaks into the truth that we first must go within to do our discerning. Because if we do not discern what is alive within us and where we are centered in consciousness, we will be doing just more harm, not only to ourselves and to the people around us, which is what step 4 is all about. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves, is what Richard Rohr calls shadow boxing in the book Breathing Underwater, right? You see, because if we do not engage in this, if we do not look at our fear, our anxiety, our worry, our disgust, etc., and we start speaking, we start acting from that place, we're going to be engaging in judgment, blame, and we keep what? The cycle going. No healing. A divided family, a house divided against herself within, right? We cannot find that true freedom and the joy of our being. And so on and so on. And so we must take that. Now, if we feel anger, anger is not unspiritual. It is emotion. Everything that is alive within us is by divine design. But what is like, okay, I'm angry because this is maybe against my integrity. So what will I do about that? Will I do that thing in Atlantic City that Lindy spoke of, or being with that person? Or do I start attacking everybody who has a t-shirt with Donald Trump's name on it, or whatever? We need to, let me not take that word, you have a choice, right? You have a choice. Because the anger you spew impacts your health, it impacts your day-to-day living, it impacts everything. And not only that, it is, your suffering spills out onto others. You think you have a right to be angry. Yes, you do. But when you start spewing it all over the place, not only is it impacting you, but it is impacting the world around you, and nothing gets solved from that place. So what is shadow boxing? So I want to talk about the shadow. Only the shadow knows. Oh, it's a heavy word, right? So first, before I go over it, I just want to say that the shadow is just simply what is unknown, hidden, stuffed, suppressed, It's not this evil entity, okay? And so the founder or who coined the word shadow is Carl Jung. And one who's really taken Carl Jung's teaching forward, evolving it, has been Carolyn Myss. So first I want to speak to Carl Jung. The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality, for no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. To become conscious of it involves recognizing the dark aspects of the personality as present and real. This act is the essential condition for any kind of self-knowledge. This is for the individual, and then when you can come from that place, when a group of people can come from the whole. The shadow self, this is now Carolyn Myss, the shadow self is the part of us we often don't want to look at because it shows us our fears, our wounds, and the areas in which we feel most powerless. To confront the shadow means you're going to discover, actually, power beyond what you've ever experienced, because it requires a whole new depth of honesty and integrity with yourself. The shadow is the aspect of you that remains unknown, yet influences every part of your life. However, the shadow isn't bad. It's just hidden. And since it's hidden, it runs around with no supervision, often wreaking havoc and consuming and causing suffering in your life. We all have shadow aspects. All of us. Anybody who's born in this earthly realm has our humanity. We have experienced suffering from a very early age. Now, some of us may have grandiose suffering who have been part of a Holocaust or been enslaved in slavery and have that in the generational line. But guess what? We're all one, right? That's in the collective soul of humanity. And so we must be willing to be courageous. Step 4 asks us to do, yes, what Richard Rohr calls shadow boxing, but taking that moral and fearless inventory. And so I'm just going to share, we're not going to do anything more with this. I'm actually going to ask you to engage in this. And you know, when we do the burning bowl, we'll have some stuff to burn. So here we go. I'm just going to give you 3 steps. First thing is to be mindful. If the shadow is hidden, how do we know it's lurking? How do we know it's active? So here are some things. When we're feeling those feelings that we call the low notes, like anger, resentment, hatred, upset, we are to befriend them and ask, going within. As Lawrence spoke so brilliantly, coming online with all, right? All 3. What is it that you're here? Discerning from that place on high, and that only can be done by doing that deep dive rather than reacting. Our judgments, criticism, where we're pointing the finger and blaming. Now, it doesn't mean that people's behaviors don't impact us, but from what place in consciousness will I respond? Because there's going to be times where I'm going to say, no, that's not acceptable, right? Our reactivity and defensiveness, whenever we feel we have to prove something or prove something to someone else, we are coming from our shadow. It doesn't mean that we like what they're saying. But going within from where and with whom will I choose to go forward with that's in alignment with me? Self-centered, we only discern and make choices, or it's that conversation or that song, me, 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 me. It's all about me, 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 and we never look at the impact of the we. When we are feeling victimized, sabotage, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next year, and then you're in next year, oh, I haven't done it yet, where you're being that and having that intuitive hit to quote unquote do something that's in alignment with your highest good, or where we feel stuck, where what Carolyn Mace says, and we all have this archetypal influence, is the saboteur. The prostitute. The saboteur is one, the victim is one, but there's also the prostitute. And this is not selling yourself for sex, but it's when we compromise our values because we're fearful. We're coming from a place of insecurity, and we're making decisions for our survival based on that insecurity rather than an informed, knowledgeable, spiritual understanding about my choices. And so step one is just being mindful. Oh my gosh, there's that judgment. I'm being critical. I find myself spewing my anger all over the place. What's really underlying that anger? What haven't I healed? What might be the original anger or anger situation, the wounding? If I think life is unfair, where did that come from? What is mine to do to heal that? So it's identify. And then it's about reflection. Oh, mirror, mirror on the wall, you are beautiful, no matter what. So then the whole purpose of doing shadow boxing is for our healing and our transformation. And when we do that as a collective, it is the same, right? And we know our growth is not a straight line. God only knows that. And neither has the growth or the evolution of our nation and in the world. So the whole purpose of doing this is so that we can live from our wholeness, regardless of what's going on. Because that is the only way we can tap into true love and true joy. And as we do this, we are to cloak ourselves with courage and compassion. You see, taking a moral inventory, that word moral, oh my God, that whole statement is like, oh, how many of you just want to go home and do that right now? Not really. That's pretty heavy, right? But I know it's led to healing. But that comes from too, like, in the class, Breathing Underwater, we were sharing this past Thursday, religion, many religious institutes, right? You were afraid to share anything because it was like you were met with like, you're a sinner. I shared the story about going to confession, when I was a little girl. And, it's like, okay, what do I say? I'm in first grade. I lied to my brother. I didn't do my chores. And then I go and sit there and I get a disgruntled person. So how happy would I be to want to do that again? And then, when I got my first marriage, I go in and I go to confession to confess. I didn't go to confession before I got married. And then he's like angry, it's like, and you got married in this church? And it's like, okay, who wants to do moral inventory? Not me. But I know it's so much more. And then if you were raised in a household where it was safer for you to lie than to tell the truth because of the punishment, you kind of develop that habit. You become defensive. You take everything as somebody's blaming me or judging me. And so it is that freedom that Carolyn May speaks of, that when we can actually do this deep dive. So in the first step, we're identifying those triggers, the judgments, the criticisms, or anger, right? We could take one of them and say, what beliefs, feelings, hurts, or fears are alive beneath this behavior? That's the question. And it may not come right away. And so we go into contemplative practices. Contemplative practice turns the power of observation inward to develop wisdom. What are some of those? Prayer, meditation, the ones you're all familiar with, journaling, music, being in the stillness, movement. Lawrence talked about the body, art, pay attention to your dreams, and above all else, have self-compassion. Start small. Maybe one day a week, you're going to say, I'm going to be mindful this day, and I'm going to record maybe one judgment I have, or one feeling of anxiousness today. And I'm going to do that. I mean, the power comes when you can begin to do it on a regular or daily basis, right? So you're just looking and seeing. We're not doing it for now. I'm not going to have you come up here and announce your shadow, I promise you. So before we come to a close, taking a fearless and moral inventory of ourselves is not easy. It is daunting at times. It is overwhelming. But it does lead, I can contest to that, to healing, to healed relationships. Many of you know I have shared many stories with the journey with my mother, of getting that hit to invite her to move in when I knew it would be uncomfortable and painful, probably for both of us. And I've shared stories. I've had hard conversations with my mom. And then I looked at myself to look at how I was contributing. I got to the point where it was pretty awesome that some of the things I never shared with her, I was able to share. And then I was starting to get to be like a badass, hard nose. And it went to the other side. I wasn't mean to her. And I can say, yesterday was my mother's 86th birthday. And it's one of the first times in my life that I ever see her so joy-filled. Filled with telling me at least 10 times how beautiful I was, how grateful she was, how happy she was, instead of me hearing to her daily bowel report, sorry. That's the gift of shadow boxing. One small gift in my life, that I had the opportunity to do this with her. I didn't know where it was going to go. And so that's why I believe, and I can tell you countless more stories, but I will leave it there for today. You see, when we begin to do that for ourselves, it's only then can we have the capacity to begin to be an agent of looking and seeing, discerning the shadow that does exist in our nation, that has not been healed, the shadow of racism, of slavery, of patriarchal, and probably many more. And so, my friends, I do invite you into this shadow boxing, taking a moral and fearless inventory. See, because from the darkness, it's only when we do this that from the darkness can we rise from the shadow individually and collectively. And so I would like to bring us now into meditation. And I'm going to close this portion before we go into meditation with this poem called Where Angels Fear to Tread. Where Angels Fear to Tread. Oh my gosh, I think I might need some water. And this is written by Rivers in an Ocean. There are places even angels won't go, shadowed and quiet, untouched by the softest wing. These are spaces we pass in silence, feeling the weight of what lies beneath. Who among us dare to enter? It takes more than courage. It takes acceptance, a trust that can bear what's unknown. The way roots press into the dark earth, knowing nothing of what waits below. There is a depth we rather avoid, a light, though, when we are willing to embrace the dark, begins to glow. Faint at first, but growing as we walk into the mystery courageously. For sometimes what angels leave untouched is meant for us alone to find, a wisdom like stones gathered in moonlight, a path only human feet can tread. And so I invite you to close your eyes and bring your awareness to your breath. Breathing in conscious awareness, and breathing out. Noticing what is alive within your body. Is it tight, relaxed? And just simply noticing as you do a body scan from head to toe. And breathing into those places that call for some tender, loving care. Speaking words of love and kindness. Perhaps I see you. I love you. And asking, what wisdom do you, my precious body, hold for me in this moment? And sensing the breath flowing in and out of your nostrils. And bringing your awareness now to your heart space. With every beat of your heart, allow your human heart to reveal to you what feelings are wanting to be brought into the light. Is it joy, love, anger, sorrow, fear? And selecting one of them. Breathing in compassionately and sensing the breath ebbing and flowing now in and out of your heart as you place one hand over your heart. What message do you hold? What healing are you, oh, the feelings of my human heart leading me to? And breathing deeper as you allow your breath to grow deep and slow in and out of your heart, connecting, calling forth in your conscious awareness your spiritual heart, the flame of love that lives, that is wise, that brings you into harmony with your divine nature. It is the cosmic heartbeat of the mysterious presence, God, source, universal light and energy. Oh, you beat within my heart, illumine my heart, illumine my mind, illumine my body. Oh, awaken me. And take in these words. Oh, some days the heart shatters wide like a tree split by lightning. Oh, and all I can do is stand in the silence, feeling the rawness, the sharp edges of loss. Oh, grief has a piercing language, loud as a storm, unrelenting, a cry, urgent, alive, filling the air. Let it be what it is, wild and fierce until it softens and finds room to breathe forever in the stillness. For even the harshest winds grow calm, and one day I will stand steady again, weathered, but as my wholeness, being the light that I am, and knowing this as I rest in the stillness. Oh, wisdom of my soul, of my body, of my heart, of my mind. Speak to me in the dark. Illumine my path. Allow me to die to what is false. Allow me to discern healing, rising in the truth of my being, unencumbered by my past, by my suffering. Oh, I rise out of the shadow of the darkness, and I walk as the light. For that is the path that the mystics called us each into. And at the depths of our soul, we know that to be true. Oh, shadow of this nation, Let us look, see, and tell the truth from a place of consciousness that is wise, that is just and loving, yet painful truth. And let us rise into the light, knowing that we belong to one another and that all life breathes together. Let us heal the shadow of racism, of patriarchal, of greed, and of the consciousness of me only. And so, from this place, we go forth, healing our own insecurities, being the light that we've come here to be. And so it is, and so it shall be. And let us say amen. Taking a deep breath in, sensing your body, rubbing your hands on the sides of your legs, placing your hands in prayer pose, bowing to the light that you are, and bowing to make the commitment to see the light in others, regardless of where they are on their path. Namaste.
I need the glasses. Go Sacred with Sonia Lee.
I wanted to say sacred, and so I wrote it, and it's really Go Scared. It's like the wine thing. Go. And Matt did the pictures for this video.
I put my courage on the shelf, threw away the key, so that I no longer reach for what I know is killing me. Somewhere in the shadows of every mistake, I heard a voice telling me I didn't have to be brave. Go scared, go lonely. You don't have to know the way right now. Just dare to journey into the great unknown, not knowing what you might find. I'll be right behind you there. Go scared. When I've been a drifter on a dark, empty road, you've been the compass guiding me all the way home. I've had to be stronger than I thought I could be. You give me strength when my fears have got me down on my knees. Go scared, go lonely. You don't have to know the way right now. Just dare to journey into the great unknown, not knowing what you might find. I'll be right behind you there. Go scared. I may never see your arms embrace me, but I know your love is there to save me. Go scared. Go scared. Go scared. Go scared. Go lonely. You don't have to know the way right now. Just dare to journey into the great unknown, not knowing what you might find. I'll be right behind you there. Go scared.